What's up, everyone out there in the land of the humans?
Are you living somewhere else?
Yeah, what could we? Yeah, I'm saying hello to a different land, a far off land that I hope one day I will be a part of. I've heard about it. It's called the land of the humans.
Okay.
And my mommy said I'm not ready for it yet.
Heard.
But one day, I've got hope. So hello. It's a Friday evening where we are at the time that we are recording this.
Yes.
Wherever you are, happy that day. And let us know where you're logging in from. Hello, Renee. Hello. Let us know where you're logging in from. And let's just get into it. So we're going to do another Q&A session today, and specifically one main question. I think we'll get a second one in. Were you going to say something to that? You did the puppy dog. Oh,
I'm excited about the question. It's a good one.
Yeah, this is a very deep question, and it's a question that most people are struggling with. I think a lot of people don't know they're struggling with this question. So this is probably your question, whether you know about it or not. Once we start explaining, I think it'll land for those of you that resonate with it. Yes?
Yeah. It's probably your question, whether you know it or not. That's powerful.
Yeah, and the reason that's so powerful is because if you don't know it's your question, then you'll be trying to solve different problems. And if you don't recognize that this is actually the target, then solving the other problems won't allow you to move past this one. Yep. It's a fear that most people have. I think I'm going to say everybody, not literally 100% everybody, but almost everybody. So might as well just say everybody. I think everybody has it, but at a different level of intensity and different contexts. So I certainly still have it, but in different situations than I used to have. And so I think that's one of the critical components, is that you can't just get rid of it. You've got to just be able to move with it and not try to overpower it with force. It's really about, moving with this fear, accepting it on some level, embracing it, doing whatever you've got to do to take action with it.
Yeah.
How can you dance inside of this fear? So we're going to get to that. We're going to answer one quick question. Well, the question might not be quick, but the answer is relatively quick. That came in one of our other videos about growth activities and what are the activities that can actually grow your business.
Yes.
So before that, if you want to see any of the replays that we've been doing, these short 30, 35, 40-minute videos, go to our Facebook page, facebook.com/Coach Sean Smith, and click on videos, click on playlist. And the playlist with all these videos is Foundations of Coaching Success in 2021. These are the shorter videos, with all these topics, and we're answering questions and so forth. But then we also have, these are two different things. We also have a mastery class series happening. We are in the, not necessarily literally in the middle. We're about to have our third mastery class tomorrow.
Yes.
So we've got the first two available for you to listen immediately right away on archive. And it is the Foundations of Success in 2021, but specifically it's the 7 core principles for more impact and more income in your coaching business in 2021 and beyond. So we're talking about how the market has changed and how we need to change because the market has changed and because the humans have changed, and all kinds of things that need to be considerations of ours. And in order to register for that free mastery class series, go to coachseansmith.com/coaching success 2021. It's deep. It's 5 different classes. 3 of them are 4-hour trainings. 2 of them are 2-hour laser coaching Q&A sessions. So all together, they are at least 16 hours, but there's going to be a little bit more than that. And you just have this vault of information that you can continuously go back and reference as you move on with your business, or just as you evolve in your life. And I think that's maybe the most value in it, is that you'll have this this series of modules you can continually fall back on. It's all based on our experience. It's based on my 15 plus years experience in transformational coaching, just in my experience of it. And then over 10 years coaching coaches, how to be better coaches, how to build businesses, all that good stuff. So it's based on reality, what we know works, not what we think might work, right? So check out those two things if you want. Let's get into the Q&A today. We're probably just going to answer two questions. The first one is, what are growth activities for your business? I'm just paraphrasing there. In yesterday's video, was it yesterday that we were talking about growth?
It was, yeah.
In yesterday's video, we talked about growth activities and maintenance activities. And most people who are struggling to build their business, or their business just isn't growing as fast as they want, if we look at the activities that you're taking, the actions that you're doing, are they growth actions or non-growth actions? Right. And for the most part, if your business isn't growing, it's probably because you're not taking growth actions. It's just that simple. You're not swinging the bat. You're not doing things that could potentially grow your business. And so somebody asked, what would some of those activities be? So my overarching definition is, a growth activity is when at the end of that activity, somebody could make a decision that grows your business. Mm-hmm. So for the most part, those are conversations. They could be conversations via email. They could be conversations over the phone. They could be conversations on webinars. But there's some form of communication, and there's an offer in the communication so that somebody could click on a link or say yes to something and grow your business financially. So they could hire you as a coach, they could buy a program or a product of yours, and your business can grow. Most of the things that we do are not growth activities. And I'm also not saying that everything you should do or everything you do should be a growth activity. We can't do that. There are management activities, there are administrative activities, there are customer service activities, there are creative activities. So like we might do a VIP day with a client and brainstorm a bunch of stuff. Those aren't growth activities, but if you implement a lot of those things, then they could be growth activities. So the implementation of some of those could be growth activities. I just want to be clear that we're not saying you got to be growth all the time, but most people who want their businesses to grow are not doing growth activities.
Correct.
It's just the reality of it. Anything you want to say to that before we go on to the juicy question?
Yeah, it's just because maintenance feels safer. And growth requires maintenance. But if you're not growing your business, you don't need to be spending like 70, 80, 90% of your time on maintenance, because there isn't anything to maintain, because there isn't anything that's being grown.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It's safer. Growth is where the risk is.
Yeah.
To do the activities that could potentially have somebody say yes and grow your business means they also could potentially have them say no. Mm-hmm. And if you're afraid of them saying no, if you're afraid of what that rejection is, if you take it personally and it means that you're not good enough, well, then that's where all the emotional risk is. So that's why the administrative and maintenance activities and everything that aren't growth activities feel safer, because there's no risk involved. Right. But of course, if there's no risk involved, then there's no reward involved either in terms of growing your business. I'm glad you made that point. And that leads into this next question, which is it's the question underneath most questions, actually, even though it's not the question that most people are asking.
Say yes to something and
okay.
Say yes to something.
I guess that was a good video to play, and it was probably a good piece of that video.
Yeah.
Say yes to something. So the question is, I'm always what?
You always have the ability to play on my computer somewhere.
Perfect. So the question is, how do I get over my fear of being visible when one of my highest values is privacy and security? So first of all, this is a high level question because most people are not asking, how do I get over the fear of visibility? Mm-hmm. Now, we know this particular person has been in our community for a long time and personal growth for a long time. So she knows that her fears of rejection and fears of failure and fears of doing certain videos and a lot of these growth activities is because of a fear of visibility. So we said earlier, this is the question that a lot of people are asking but not asking. They're asking different questions, and it usually comes in the form of what's the right thing to do. The reason that we ask what's the right thing to do is because we're afraid of doing the wrong thing. The reason we're afraid of doing the wrong thing is because it's emotionally destructive if we do the wrong thing. But the reason that it's emotionally destructive is because we are, or not the reason that it is emotionally destructive, but the way that we can make sure we are not emotionally destroyed is that we don't put ourselves in the situation to be judged or to be rejected or to fail. And the only place that that happens is visibility. So if you're not visible, you can't be rejected. People can't reject what they don't know about.
Amen.
People can't criticize what they don't see. They can't disagree with what they don't hear. So if we're afraid of people disagreeing with us, and if we're afraid of people telling us we don't know what we're talking about, if we're afraid of people finding out about us, you know, the imposter syndrome, all of those fears come after they know about us.
Right.
So if we want to protect ourselves from what comes after them knowing about us, the easiest way to do that is make sure they never do.
Yep.
You can't not like me if you don't know me. If this is landing for you just right out of the gate here, please comment, let us know, but also let you know that this is actually what's going on here. So the way the brain works with fear is that it tries to get 2 steps ahead of it. So if people are afraid of public speaking, let's say,
Right.
people are actually not afraid of public speaking. Nobody is born inherently afraid of speaking in public. Something happens to us along the way that happened after we were speaking in public. And it's, most of the time when I do this work, it happens in school.
Absolutely.
Most of the time it comes back to 6th grade math class or something, and you go up in front of the class and you do it wrong, you get laughed at, or you try to read in front of people and they laugh at you, or the teacher laughs at you. And we tell ourselves as a young child generally, that's not safe. Don't ever do that again. So the mind understands that the danger happens when people scream at us, punish us, laugh at us. It's the response to our visibility. It's the response to our attempt. Usually it's something that we really care about. Like we're sharing our opinion, or we're singing or dancing or doing something, you know, that we're trying to be ourselves, you know, it's some kind of authentic visibility. And then we get punished for it in some way. So the brain goes, that sucks. That doesn't feel good.
Nope.
But the brain doesn't want us to only not be ridiculed in front of a math class. The brain says, how can I make sure this doesn't happen not only in that scenario, but any other scenario either? So the brain will go, let's not ever be visible in class. And then that'll keep us from getting ridiculed in math class or language class or, you know, any of the other classes, because now we've expanded it to include all of the potential danger inside a class. But then the brain goes, but that's not safe enough. I want to expand it even further. I want to make sure I don't ever show up, put my hand up, speak up, step forward when any people are around. Doesn't just have to be in class, just anywhere. Anywhere where there's people, then I'm not interested. And so the brain then manufactures this fear of speaking in public where people are, when that actually is not our fear. But the brain knows if we are convinced that we're afraid of speaking when people are around, then there's no chance we're actually going to say something and get ridiculed, because the brain has shut us down before we say something.
Right.
And then we walk around with this fear, and it's a manufactured fear that's not actually true, which is sad. But then we try to overcompensate for the fear. And so if we have a fear of being ridiculed, then the brain says, the only way I'm going to allow you to speak in public is if you guarantee me they won't ridicule us. If you can promise me that they will not ridicule us, then I'll allow you to do it. Well, the only way to do that is make sure you're perfect, because people don't ridicule perfection, so we think. So the brain convinces us you only have permission with perfection. Until you're perfect, you do not have my permission, because remember last time what happened? Yeah. So until you convince me that you're perfect. All right, so then we've got this goal that's literally impossible. All of us know perfection is impossible, but that's the only condition for permission. And the condition of perfection requires that we know exactly what people will like. We know what they will ridicule. We know what they will criticize. We know what they will approve of. We know what they will like. We know what jokes they'll laugh at. It requires us to know exactly what we can and can't do so that we make sure we don't experience that thing that we're afraid of experiencing that happened one time or several times in our life. And then that's what we get to walk around with literally for the rest of our lives. So then, to take it one step further, the brain goes, in fact, I'm not just going to shut you down from speaking in public. I'm going to shut you down from being in public. I don't even want you seen. I don't trust your mouth so much so that I don't even want to give you the opportunity to open your stupid little mouth and say something stupid again and embarrass us again. So you're not going to be seen. I don't think we've ever broken it down as succinctly or as clearly as we're doing now, especially in this context. So please let us know if this is really landing for you. And if it's triggering you, then that's great. That just means that's true for you. Then this is really what your journey is. The journey now is not to be perfect. The journey is to get permission through authenticity rather than permission through perfection. And if that's the journey, now that's a new target. Now we can heal our fear of visibility. And then we can maybe heal our fear of speaking in public. And then we can heal our fear of saying the wrong thing. And then we can heal our fear of being visible, speaking in public, saying the wrong thing, and somebody not liking us. That's the ultimate liberation.
Yeah.
It took me a long time. I mean, I was on that journey. You know, I kind of healed that in phases, right? I got to the point where I didn't care about what people thought of me about this topic. And then I didn't care about what they thought of me about this topic. And then I didn't care about this topic. And then I didn't care in this context. And then I didn't care in this community or with this audience. So this is not some overall just on-off switch that you can go, okay, now I don't care about anything about anybody thinking whatever they want to think about me. This is a gradual, continual process for most of us, myself included. And I still have areas where I absolutely do care, where what people think about me, because I just don't have the body for those conversations yet, in certain audiences yet, with certain people maybe in the audience yet. I've healed most of it, but I also know enough about how this works to know that I haven't healed all of it. And a lot of it, I don't even know that I still have this fear of visibility in certain conditions because I'm not in those conditions. You know, it's like beyond my current comfort zone. So hopefully this is making sense just in the whole setup. And a lot of the explanation of this has already kind of led to some of the solutions in the problem itself. So if you have a deep desire to be right, you probably have a fear of visibility. If you have a deep fear of rejection, you probably got a fear of visibility. If you have trauma or turbulence in your childhood, you probably have a fear of visibility.
Yeah.
And I know this is a huge part of your story, Michelle, so I'll throw it over to you to either share a part of that story or take this wherever you want to go. But when children are punished for being visible in their childhood, that punishment becomes an embodied trauma trigger. It's a literal trauma trigger for a lot of us. And so a lot of people, in my experience, this is more so with women than men.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have a literal embodied survival fear
Yeah.
of being seen. You know, if you were yelled at as a child, if you were hit as a child, the only way somebody could hit you is if you were visible.
Yeah.
The only way somebody could yell at you is if they could see you and they could hear you, right? So we developed this brilliant solution.
Yeah.
It's safe in the shadows. If that's where the safety is, then that's where I want to stay. So going back to this question, you have probably, to the person that answered the question or asked the question, you probably developed the high value of privacy and security because of everything that I just said.
Correct.
Because the fear of public engagement, the fear of relationship in general as a concept, not just romantic relationships or business relationships, the fear of human connection is not an inherent fear. So that's a learned fear. And it's because of everything that we've been talking about. And then the brain says, here's how you don't get hurt again. Don't get connected again. Don't allow people to see you. Don't allow people to know you. If you don't want somebody to hurt your heart, don't give it to them.
Yeah.
Which means show up protected, right? And that's probably what the value of privacy and security is a result of. It's a commitment to protection. And we can't protect and connect at the same time. These things are diametrically opposed to each other. You're either this or you're that. You're either committed to connection or you're committed to protection. You can't be committed to both. So if this is landing with any of you, then what that means is there's just some personal work that needs to be done. But the good news is it can all be done. Because the fear of human connection is not an inherent fear, that means it's a learned fear. And anything that can be learned can be unlearned. And if anybody that I know is a testament to that, it's this lady right here.
Yeah. Thank you. This is such a real and deep like question and conversation, and I almost like am like find myself like emotionally like feeling emotional about it. It's important that we understand what's happening. And to what Sean just mentioned a few moments ago, I want to bring the question back to the forefront of your mind for anybody who's listening, which was, how do I get over my fear of being visible when one of my highest values is privacy and security? And what I wrote down is privacy and security, they're the solutions. And it's really important that we understand how our sabotage works and that it loves us a lot. Like a lot. And that doesn't connect for people, right? Because it's like, no, that's the thing that's holding me back. It's the thing that's keeping me from what it is that I want. And for me, that thing was perfection, right? I did not have permission to perform unless it was perfect. Everything, the way I looked, the way I spoke, the way I sounded, the amount of time that I spent perfecting things that didn't matter, studying things that were irrelevant. So much time wasted. It's actually brought me to tears before, thinking about how much I actually didn't do while I was trying to be perfect at the things that just didn't matter. And what I needed to understand was that perfection, because the way I went after it was that perfection was the problem that needed to be solved. So let me know in the chat if that's something that you've done, maybe with procrastination, right? Where you're like, I need to get rid of this thing. And if I can get rid of this thing, then I'll be good, right? The kind of flaw in that thinking is that the perfection in my story was the solution, not the problem. The perfection is what kept me safe. It wasn't the issue that needed to be fixed. And if you think about, let's just think about protection like a raincoat, right? Protection is keeping me safe from the rain. And so you just want me to take off this coat and now I'm just going to get wet and I'm going to get hit with all the elements, right? This is keeping me dry and good in here. So the reason that so many of us wrestle with perfectionism and procrastination for the length of time that we do is because we're approaching it in the wrong direction. And what we need to understand is that the sabotage serves us. The sabotage loves us, even if, and Sean said something a few moments ago that sounded kind of mean, right? Like when he was talking about, like, I'm never going to let you speak again. You're not going to sound stupid in front of those people, right? The thing is that it might sound like abuse, but it loves us enough to come after us hard enough to protect us. That's how much it loves us. So even if it has to slap us on the hands or yank us back or lock us in a room so that nobody touches us and sees us, it's doing it because it loves us. And once we understand that, then we can start to look at it differently and realize, okay, wait a minute, if this is protecting me, what is it protecting me from? And for me, the protection was keeping me from getting in trouble for being wrong. And that is something that showed. Before you
go on, I just want to pause. That's a really, really deep statement. And it's an extremely common connection for a lot of people. So if that lands for you, that resonates for you, the punishment for being wrong, then really be with that. Let us know, first of all, if that lands with you, but really be with that, because if being wrong equals punishment, we will never enjoy or lean into punishment, at least not of this kind. Right? We can get into a self-punishment pattern, but that's a different context here. It's a different application. But the fear of being punished because we're bad, because we're wrong, because we're stupid, because we are, that fear of being punished is so deep and powerful. Now, it doesn't make sense to our intellectual mind that if we put a video out there or if we make some kind of post on social media that we're afraid of being punished. That's not an intellectual connection that most of us make. I would imagine that's true for you, right, Michelle? You didn't recognize that this was a fear of punishment. But if they don't engage, you acted like it was punishment. And you shared yesterday, and several people commented on it, about how you used to make posts, and if anybody didn't like it, or if you didn't get engagement right away, you would immediately take the post down. So you were acting as though you were being punished, even though the punishment wasn't actually there, which means that's what's going on in your mind.
Correct.
But if it's unconscious and you don't recognize that you're actually not afraid of failure, you're not afraid of rejection, you're not afraid of criticism, you're not afraid of any of those things, the way they manifest and the way that we convince ourselves, we're not actually afraid of the things, we're afraid of punishment. Yeah. We will protect ourselves from punishment much deeper than we will protect ourselves from being rejected and that's one of the reasons why it's so infuriating for so many of us. Like, I know I just got to get over this fear of rejection. I know that every no gets me closer to a yes, and some will and some won't, and so what, and somebody's waiting. And we have all these intellectual understandings of why these fears don't make sense. And so often we are intellectually solving these intellectual fears. But to Michelle's point, these are actually the raincoats. You're not stopping it from raining. You're just trying to convince yourself to go out into the rain without a coat on. And we don't want to do that if we're actually afraid of being wet.
Correct.
So if we're afraid of being wet and the existence of rain or the potential for rain means we might get wet, then does it really matter what kind of umbrella we take out? Does it really matter what kind of raincoat we have? We can convince ourselves that it doesn't matter how much protection we bring, there is a chance we get wet. So what I'm saying is, if there's an unconscious fear of punishment, that will shut you down, even though you've figured out a way to consciously overcome your fear of rejection or to consciously overcome your fear of being wrong. That's not actually the fear. And it works as a misdirection. It works as there's a scientific term for this, and I don't know what it is. If it comes to me, I'll share it later. But essentially, it's like a false target, right? Like the real fear is it's a misdirection. It's throwing this thing that's not actually the thing, so that you'll chase that, and therefore you won't confront the real thing, right? And so many of us are searching for the right thing to do, and the fear of rejection and all these other fears that, again, to your point, those are the solutions. So what happens when you solve the solutions but don't touch the problem? Then we get frustrated. And most of us, I think, have been in that situation, or you are in that situation where it doesn't make sense why you've practiced the speech for hours and hours and hours and hours, and yet you get up to talk and your voice leaves you.
Yeah.
We're intellectually prepared. We're neurologically scared. That's the piece that we're talking about. So just going back to what caused me to want to jump in here for a moment is, how did you say it? It's something equals, being wrong. Being wrong equals punishment.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have a fear of being wrong, which means if you have a fear of being wrong in any scenario that involves humans, you don't get to play, because it's literally impossible to try anything without potentially being wrong, especially when we don't even have a working definition of what wrong is. So go ahead. I don't know if you can pick back up where you were before I jumped in, or whatever you're thinking about now.
It's exhausting. It's exhausting. I got like tears in my eyes when you were talking, because I could just remember all the times that even if I did give myself permission to perform, I would do the thing, and then I would just I would hold my breath, right, in this state of just waiting, honestly, just waiting to get hit.
Yeah.
And just that process of just the tension around that, I did it, which I think is also why a lot of us who dance with this or who are struggling with this, post and ghost, right? Do and then stop, right? Why we're not consistent, because we put something out there and then we're hiding and we're waiting, whether it's to get hit or get yelled at or to get abandoned or whatever the bad thing is that we believe has happened to us. And I share this because this is so much of the work that needs to be done. This is what we do inside of our trainings. This is where these trainings, these conversations within this community is where I healed this. So this is not something that I did on my own and then came back here. This is the community where I did this work. The hope for you, if this is resonating with you and landing with you, is that now you have the target on the right thing. And so if you now know, okay, this is the thing for me to be able to work with, this is the thing for me to deal with, now we can get to work on the thing that is actually the thing, and then let your perfectionism will disappear. I don't even worry about my perfectionism anymore, because it's not that, I don't need that raincoat, not with the work that I'm doing. Not right now. I'm not saying that it won't pop up again in the future with something new or a new community or a new conversation with what Sean said, but I don't have to wrestle with that anymore, because I don't need that protection. And that is what's possible. And the reason so many of us end up just pulling out and not being visible is because trying to manage what's going to get me in trouble with Sean, or what's going to get me in trouble in my family, or what's going to get me in trouble at my job, or what's going to get me in trouble with these people over here, or with all of the individual people who follow me on social media or who watch on YouTube. That part's exhausting. So it's way easier just to not be seen. It's way easier. Instead of trying to do all that, let me just not be seen. I'm gonna go chill out and call it a day instead of trying to figure out all of that mess. And so when we have the understanding of what is actually happening, and we can have compassion for ourselves because we understand what is happening, now we can begin to heal this relationship with ourselves and with visibility, so that we can dance together with it instead of believing it's something that needs to be demolished and try to shred and destroy the thing that's been keeping us safe for most of our lives.
Boom. So a couple things. Most people want to make a difference, and you can't make a difference and be invisible at the same time.
Yeah.
So one of those two things has to win.
Yeah.
The other thing is, well, when you were saying, you were talking about posting and ghosting. We make a post and then we leave. What we're afraid of is the punishment, right? But what we perceive of as punishment is where I think the real tragedy lies.
Yes.
Because if you make a post, the real punishment that we're afraid of is somebody going, you're a piece of garbage and you suck and you're an idiot and you should just shut up. And how many times do we ever hear that, right? So rare.
Yeah.
So rare. But that's what we're afraid of. But what we perceive as punishment is we make the post and then nobody says what we want them to say.
Right.
Or they don't say anything. And then that becomes the punishment.
We make it mean.
That's what we make it mean. Of course, not consciously, but
No.
it's to your point. You were embodying it, like you throw it out there and go, don't hit me.
Right.
But what's so sad is people not saying anything is your perception of them hitting you. So
Absolutely.
then you take it down.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know me, this is not the time to get into this, but I believed that questions were attacks for a long time.
Yeah. And almost any response
Absolutely.
would be an attack.
Yep.
And then if we do get the response that we want, like, you are the most amazing being I've ever seen in my entire life. You just saved my whole world. You are, what's the saying? All that in a bag of chips, right?
All that in a bag of chips.
You are everything, everything, everything.
Yeah.
As soon as we're done with that sentence, we need to hear it from somebody else.
Absolutely.
Like, it is so short-lived. So even the thing that we're searching for doesn't even work.
No.
It's because we have the wrong target.
Yeah.
And that's why this work has to come from intrinsic motivation and inspiration. We dove into that in a different video, so we're not going to reteach that. But you've got to do the work for the sake of doing the work. You can't create for the reaction.
No.
If you create for the reaction, you will never have permission to create.
No.
Or you'll just create prostituted messages.
Yeah.
Because your creations you only have permission to create that which everybody will like, but you don't know what they'll like. So you only show up as a version of who they want you to be.
Yeah.
So there's one more thing that,
Only one?
yeah, only one more for this video.
Okay.
There's a lot more for sure.
Yeah.
But we talked about the fear of visibility and how the safety resides in the caves, right? The safety resides in the shadows. If you recognize that you've created that connection, that safety only exists in the shadows, you have to understand that your fear of visibility cannot be healed in the shadows.
Right.
the fear of visibility requires visibility to heal itself.
Yes.
And it's not a flip of a switch. It's not a line that you cross, but you have to understand. I watched a movie recently, and a woman had agoraphobia. I think that's the fear of leaving the house.
Yeah.
You cannot heal your fear of leaving the house in the house.
No.
Because you have to step out of the house to test it.
Right.
And what most people will do, I don't know about most, I don't know that this is like scientifically true or in the therapy community or counseling community, but in my mind, most people will probably lean out of the house and then shut the door.
Yeah.
And then next time, lean out of the house, look up and take a step out and then come back in. And then next time, take 3 steps. And then next time, be able to walk down the steps and then come back in. And then next time, be able to actually take a few steps one way or the other on the sidewalk. And then maybe eventually they can cross the street. Like, this is a gradual process, but you cannot get over all of those fears. You can't get the embodied evidence of all of that stuff that's required for you to go, you know what? I'm no longer afraid of leaving the house before you leave the house. So the fear of the spotlight can only be healed in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And that is not something that the intellect understands, because remember, the intellect says, as long as you prove to me that everything out there in the spotlight is safe and we will never get ridiculed again and everybody will always love everything that we have to say, you're never going to be at risk of anybody not liking you. That's the only time that you have my permission to get into the spotlight. And that's just simply not how this stuff works. So
No.
we want you to have hope. We want you, as Michelle just said, to know that the target can be placed where the problem actually lies.
Yes.
And then if you understand human foundational behavior, which is what we dove deep into in the first mastery class 4-hour workshop. And then if you understand what it takes to start to heal some of that stuff, what it takes to start to change some of the behavior at a foundational level, not at a raincoat level. Because think about that. It's such a great analogy, because what kids are afraid of the rain? Nobody. None of them. There's not a single child afraid of the rain until usually, I'm gonna put this on mom, although it's not always mom. It could be dad. But in my experience, from what I've seen personally and in all this journey, it's usually mom doesn't want you to get wet. Dad probably doesn't care as much, because dad was the one that was out there jumping in the rain also, right? So we as dads, a lot of times, we're not afraid of the falls. We're not afraid, at least in the same way. And I'm not trying to chalk everything up to, to women, and I'm not trying to be demeaning or mean or insensitive or anything like that. I'm just saying, in my experience, that's usually, and that's the feminine not wanting something that they care about to be hurt.
That's right.
So that's actually a form of nurturing, which is what you said, earlier. So it's an extreme form of care through protection, right?
Right.
But there is no child that's afraid of the rain until they were probably ridiculed or threatened or maybe punished for being out in the rain. So
right.
we've manufactured these fears that we don't actually have. These are not factually true fears, but we've convinced ourselves that they are, because we're afraid of the punishment. So the hope can hopefully come in placing the target where the target belongs, and understanding that you're not trying to get to a place you've never been before. You're trying to get back to a place.
Yes.
That you were created inside of and that you were created with. This is a journey back to where we always were at one point. And even though we might not remember being there, that is our original place. So this is about taking the layers of protection off. It's not about getting something that we don't currently have.
I hope it's raining where everybody is, so that we
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
The experience of standing outside for just a moment and allow ourselves to get wet. Yeah.
And still be loved anyway.
That's right. Yeah.
This is a really good segue into our mastery class tomorrow. If you're live with us now or you're watching the replay right away, tomorrow we're doing our third mastery class in the series, and we're talking about the foundations of transformational coaching. So what do we do with people that have these fears of punishment, that have this fear of visibility? How do we actually get down to the roots of the issue to recognize that you're not afraid of the raincoat, you're afraid of the rain, so you think? How do we actually help people untie the knots that they've tied so that they can liberate themselves? That's what we're going to dive into in the third part of this mastery class series. So if you're not registered for it, register for it. We're teaching it like it's a paid training. It's all free, but we're teaching it like it's a paid training. I mean, we're bringing it. We want you to have an embodied experience. This isn't just a bunch of slides and information that we want you to just understand intellectually and regurgitate. We want you to really experience what transformation is.
Yeah.
From a human behavioral standpoint, which is the mastery class that we already did, that's ready for you to listen to. And then from a transformational coach's standpoint, what is it that you're watching for, listening for? What's the kind of energy that you need in order to do this work that we've been talking about? So two things that are so uber clear to me, and I know it geeks both of us out. If any of this stuff has landed, this is the depth of human behavior. This is the depth of transformation. If you just try to motivate yourself with information, none of the stuff we're talking about will make a difference.
Right.
And that's why so many people are trying to be perfect, and they're getting better information and they're trying to prepare themselves intellectually, but it doesn't actually heal anything. It doesn't liberate anything. In fact, it's just more protection. Which is why I think the rules for speaking and the rules for coaching and the rules for so much of the, any of these kind of performance arenas actually do more harm than good. They actually strengthen our fears rather than release them.
Yeah.
Because they're telling us these are the rules to not be wrong. So that's all BS, in my opinion, if you want to be free and liberated. So two things. Number one, it's possible to uproot whatever's holding you back personally. And number two, it's possible to learn how to do that for others. In tomorrow's mastery class, we're going to talk about that second one. It's possible to learn how to do that for others. So if you want to be a transformational agent, not just be a product of transformation, but you really want to be a transformational coach, then register for that whole series, attend that class, listen to the replays over and over and over again so that it can really land for you.
Yes.
Man, this is the stuff right here.
High five. Boom. Ish.
Super awkward.
That's us.
All right, y'all. I hope this landed. Thank you, Michelle, for adding so much depth there. And we'll see you in another video soon. Hopefully, we'll see you inside the Mastery Class series as we unpack a lot of this training.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.